Good morning. My name is Mara Hayward Thomas, and I am a sophomore here at Winston-Salem State University. In hopes for the future, my field of interest is specifically social work. To act as a rehabilitator for my community. This is specifically that of military officials such as veterans, military personnel, as well as convicts and felons. When dealing with the military, we serve military families and veterans. This would include therapy regarding mental health and behavioral health, housing, Medicare, and more. When working with the military, there are a multitude of branches that I could continue my social work practice in or start my social work practice in. When dealing with the Air Force, it is vital that the social workers' job to help with families and cope with stressors that come with dealing with loved ones being in the Air Force. When dealing with the Army, social workers are usually officers who are both active duty and also officers who can be in the reserves. 1945 was when the social workers were able to be commissioned as officers in the United States Army. Just like in the Air Force, those who are social workers in the Army also provide a multitude of different services to service members. In the Department of Veteran Affairs, social workers also provide a multitude of different services. In regard to social workers, the Department of Veteran Affairs is the largest employer to those who have a master's degree in the United States for social workers. So since 1926, social workers have been working for this department, and being a social worker here ensures that the veteran has access to certain resources, benefit assistance, mental health therapy, and more. Being a social worker in prison is a completely different story. Basically, it's called being a correctional social worker, and when being a correctional social worker, it comes with prison reform, prisoner rehab, and more. Correctional social workers aid in preparing prisoners for re-entry into society. They also aid in determining one's mental health and substance abuse. One goal is preventing recidivism, which ensures that the felon does not go back to their old ways and eventually return back to prison. To be a correctional social worker in North Carolina, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree from an institution and a credible institution, and a social worker certification is required. In order to become a social worker in the Army, in Veteran Affairs, a person needs to have at least a master's degree. One second. First, my main reason for being a social worker is because I wanted to live my life, knowing that I've made a large social impact. What purpose does one have on this earth if they do not make a positive impact to society or have done something to help another? This does not always have to be social work, but this could be like things like plant life, revitalization, or activism, being a foster parent, and more. I am currently an ROTC at WSSU in Wake Forest. It's a conjoined program. And basically this provides me with a 3-year scholarship and also trains me on Army tactics and Army values. After I graduate, I have the option to go full-on active duty, or I can be in the reserves for a number of years. Currently, I'm interested in being in the reserves because I have the opportunity to go and get my master's degree and also be able to do social work for the Army. And not only do I have the option to have employment after I graduate, but I also have the experience and I'm able to relate to those more who I provide services for. So for me, this would be a win-win situation. My main reasons for wanting to work with prisoners is because in my family, most of the men who have been incarcerated in their lifetime, So this includes people like my dad, all of my uncles, my brother, cousins, and just more people. A lot of them have not been offered much assistance when integrating back into society. They're not offered health care. They're not given jobs. Jobs are really hard to come by. And when growing up, I often watched movies or read instances where prisoners were not given good treatment and were often treated as less than human beings because of things like, it could be petty offenses that led them there, but also it could have been, really major offenses. But also, when you're treating someone who's in prison as less than human beings, what does that make yourself? You're the same person, you're the same type of person that you're treating differently. And so these are my main reasons for wanting to work with felons, and to also aid in prison reform and help with rehabilitation when being integrated back into society. The social work values when working with correctional facilities, they also vary. And adapting social worker, in the article, Adapting Social Work Values to the Corrections Environment, Margaret M. Seversons discusses many of the different ideologies that vary in the field of correction. One is advocacy. Social workers are advocates for those who are powerless, such as inmates. Being an advocate means advocating for better mental health services. Providing mental health services also ensures that the prisoner believes that she or he has the ability to change their position in life. In the United States, the recidivism rate for inmates was about 50%. This shows that many who are in prison aren't being ensured that they go back, so they aren't being given the help they need to ensure that they do not go back to prison. So because of this, being a social worker means getting them to a point where they want to make a change in their life. And, regardless of, and us as social workers, we should ensure this regardless of what their crime is. Because I know at a lot of times, if they do something that, is a very sensitive topic to a certain social worker, we wouldn't do, it would be common knowledge that we wouldn't do our best to ensure that they're given all the help they need. So I feel like being a social worker, it includes being an advocate for all situations. Other values of a correctional social worker is confidentiality. With being a social worker, it is ideal to keep the information of your client